Hi everyone, Stepan here. Today I'm going to show you my anti-Queen's Gambit weapons, and the repertoire is going to be very simple. We're going to have a look at three setups. You can learn it in about half an hour, I think, to have it on a playable level. It's very aggressive, very uncommon, and most people with white who play the Queen's Gambit d4, c4 probably won't know what to do. And to prove that, when I had white against the Schara Gambit, the first setup we're going to have a look at, I almost lost the game out of the opening against an 1800 rated player. I had no idea what I was doing. I managed to win the game, but I was much worse at some point. So we're going to be looking at d4, d5, c4, e6. This is our starting setup. And as you may know, I've been playing the Slav, semi-Slav for a long time. But there is a great benefit to starting with e6 because black is the one who gets to steer the game in their direction. So we're going to have a look at what happens on knight f3 and knight c3. But we're also going to have a setup against g3, early e3, queen c2. So these three setups I'm going to show you will be applicable against anything white does. Before we start with the theory, I would like to say that learning a repertoire by studying the theoretical lines over and over again is fine, but if you can get real experience, that process of learning and opening is much quicker and smoother and more natural. So instead of learning lines, I would recommend that you get this repertoire using the link below. Go to Noctie. And as you probably know, I've been using Noctie for about a year now. It's a human AI and you get to practice against it, pretending that you have a human who's willing to play chess against you over and over again in very specific positions. So as you can see here, I have a bunch of repertoires already. I don't even know how many. I've imported the anti-Queen's Gambit lines we're going to have a look at. So what you can do is you can go to that repertoire and play it against Noctie. Set the strength. If you put it on rook 2, you're probably going to lose. I do. So let's say rook 1. I want to play as black. And let's see what Noctie does. Noctie is, of course, going to go into the repertoire you've imported. Okay, we know that against knight c3, we play the Tarrasch, and we go into the Schara Gambit. Takes. Plays queen a4, interesting. Noctie is professional, that's great. Okay, takes, queen takes. Let's go, okay, sorry, we have to go knight c6 first. Knight f6, bishop c5. Okay, queen e7. Now Noctie could deviate. We don't know what it's gonna do. Oh, why did I castle kingside? I need to go back. I castled queenside automatically. Kingside automatically. I should have castled queenside. Okay, now let's go g5. Let's see what Noctie does. You're gonna see this is a very, very aggressive opening. Okay, plays queen c2. That's interesting. Huh. Okay, I'm not gonna play the whole game. I'll just do one more move. Let's go. Oh, I blundered? Why? Oh, I blundered my bishop away. Okay, let's go back. Let's see. You can get hints from Noctie. It says g4 or knight b. Okay, knight b4 makes sense. King b8 makes more sense because my knight is pinned and my bishop is hanging. Okay, so this is what I do. Obviously, I'm not too experienced. I've never played this with black. I have faced it with white, which is why I decided to adopt the opening. So go to Noctie, visit the link below, and you will get this repertoire. There are many other things you can do. My favorite things are themes. Whenever I finish a game and mess something up or prepare for a game, I'll create a full theme on Noctie and prepare. This is my prep for Željko Bedić, this is my prep for Lovro Čupić, this is my prep for Mr. Ilić in the Tarrasch, this is my, I mean, this is what I do. You can get any position you want, you've messed up, play it out against Noctie and learn from it. Okay, now let's go back to the theory. So first of all, when I have white here, which is very often, I play the move knight c3. And we are going to be against knight c3 only because there's a very specific reason this doesn't work against knight f3. We're going to be playing the Tarrasch with c5. Now, if you want to play the normal Tarrasch, then that works against knight f3 too, because when cd5 is played, you take ed5, and whether the knight's on f3 or on c3 makes no difference. But since we are playing the Schara Gambit, which is c takes d4, there's a huge deal of difference with these two knights, if there's a knight on f3, the knight can take, and white doesn't lose a tempo. This way, white must recapture with the queen. And when I had white in this position, I played a suboptimal move. I played queen takes. A much better way to play is to go queen a4 check, provoking bishop d7, and then to take. And the reason is very clear. If you take straight away, as was the case in my game, black plays knight c6, and the knight cannot be taken because it's pinned to the queen. The pawn is pinned to the queen. So this is what happened in my game. Queen d1, e takes d5, I took queen takes d5, and now my opponent played the von Hennig Gambit within the Schara, which is bishop e6. Now, the reason white should go queen a4 becomes very clear. If queen a4, bishop d7, then you can take queen takes d4, and now if knight c6, you just pick up a full knight. So experienced white players are going to go queen a4, queen d4, and then you take back, queen takes, knight c6, knight f3, knight f6, the queen must go back to d1, and we go bishop c5, queen e7, castles queenside, and we go for a kingside pawn storm. That's the idea. So something like e3 most likely, queen e7, bishop e2, castles queenside, castles kingside. Rook g1 is playable, but I prefer g5. And this pawn really should not be taken. Now, the Schara Gambit is the only relatively unsound setup out of the three. The engine gives it as about 0.8, close to +1. However, the attacking possibilities here are endless, and on our level, meaning anything below grandmaster level, being 0.8 down doesn't really make a huge deal of difference if you know the opening well, if you know the patterns. So black will rely on a quick attack. Now, I'll give you two options. So after cd4, queen d4 straight away, we can get the same type of setup. Knight c6, queen d1, e d5, queen d5. This is how my game had gone. And now if you want to play it safe with black, you play bishop d7 and you transpose to the position we just had a look at with queen a4, queen d4, because you had to block the check with bishop d7. So knight f3, knight f6, queen d1, bishop c5, e3, queen e7, castles, castles, same position. However, my opponent played the von Hennig, bishop e6, and I was extremely confused. If you don't know this position as white, I mean, chances of survival are pretty slim, and I'll try to explain why, which is why I prefer bishop e6 to bishop d7. If I had this today, I would go bishop e6, even though the engine says bishop d7 is a better move. So obviously white trades queens. That's the weird part. You allow a queen trade in a gambit line, so takes, rook takes. But look at knight b4. What does white do against that? And in my game, I had a 30-minute thing here, and I played a bad move. Again, I managed to survive, but I could have lost. The best move is e3, after which, black plays a6, controlling the square to make sure there are no tricks and checks and pins, and after bishop e2 you go knight b4. The best move for white is king f1, and this is supposed to be fine for white, but personally I would still take black. This is equal according to the engine. Now the move I played in my game, which seemed to make sense to me, was bishop d2. And of course, I had expected knight b4. And now there are three moves. You can go king d1, rook c1, or castles queenside. Before playing bishop d2, I had already decided to go king d1, because that saves a pawn. If I'm entering a gambit line and I want a pawn, I'm not going to give the pawn back. Now the point being, if rook c1, then the a2 pawn is hanging. Black can just take. If castles, then of course knight a2 check. And black is definitely better because the king is completely cut off. What I did was I don't think it's worse than castling, but I played king d1, which allows pins along the d file but saves the a pawn. So the game went knight f6, e3, a6, and then I went king c1 because I have to avoid pins along the d file, and I have to do stuff. Maybe I didn't play e3, maybe I played knight f3. In any case, The Schara Gambit is extremely interesting, and this is likely the position you're going to get, unless you want to play bishop e6, which is also fine. So once more, against knight c3 on move 3, we go into a Tarrasch, but when they take on d5, we don't take back. We take on d4, going into a Schara. Now, many people will play knight f3 on move 3, and against this, we are playing the Noteboom. The Noteboom is c6, and the idea behind the Noteboom is we want to take that pawn and defend it with b5. So we just have an extra pawn. I should note that against knight c3, the reason we don't play the Noteboom here, instead we play the Tarrasch, is because on c6 there is the very, very annoying Schara Gambit, in which if you want to survive as black, you have to know about 20 moves of theory. So against knight c3 we play the Tarrasch, Schara Gambit. Against knight f3 we play the Noteboom. Now of course e4 makes no sense because the knight's not on c3 and the e4 would lose a tempo. Now we are going to have a look at e3 separately, and against that we are going to play the Stonewall. Why? Because we have an improved Stonewall. So against knight c3 we take the pawn, we go into a proper Noteboom. Against every other sensible move, we play the Stonewall with bishop f5. I'm going to show you one exception, but that's when we get to the Stonewall. Now, most people, myself included, will go e3 here, not knight c3. My friend Vlatko plays the Noteboom all the time. We had this position a bunch of times. I'll go e3, he'll go knight f6, I'll go queen c2, we'll go into a normal anti-Miran. Once again, against e3, we do play f5. However, people who aren't afraid of the Noteboom, which they should be, are going to go knight c3. And now the pawn is hanging. Instead of delaying this pawn triangle, we have delayed knight f6, which gives us the option to defend the pawn on c4, so we grab the pawn. Now, white has numerous options here, but the main move by far is a4. The idea behind a4 is preventing b5, and we're going to be using the same pattern over and over and over again in all of these lines. Against a4, we go bishop b4. The idea being, once this pawn moves to e3 or to e4, we go b5, and now the pawn is defended because it's not attacked twice, because the knight's pinned. Of course, playing something like a6 makes no sense, because our a pawn would be pinned. That's a pattern you must know. I'm going to focus on patterns here, not so much on theory. You're going to have to learn this on your own. Just visit Noctie below, check out the repertoire, and practice it. So b5, and white has one way to regain the pressure on the pawn, which is either knight d2 or bishop d2. Most people play bishop d2. And now we're going to lose the pawn. Once again, a6 makes no sense. If you blunder with a6, then that's just the end of the game. Everything's hanging. So not a6. Instead, we play a5. And in exchange for giving the pawn back, so a b5, bishop c3, bishop c3, bc3, this pawn is not hanging yet, but after b3 it is. This cannot be taken because bishop b5. We now go bishop b7, and once the pawn is taken, we advance with b4. And this is a well-known position if you have white. Usually, white plays this a tempo up, and the point is you have given away the center, you have given white the bishop pair, but you have two connected passed pawns on the flank, 3 squares away from queening. And of course, if we traded all the pieces off, well, then it would be a draw. But if we left just the minor pieces, black could be easily winning here. So that's the main idea of the Noteboom. Now, on our level, you may not get that position. You will get something similar, or you will get to keep the pawn. And the same goes for every other move by white. Let's say white goes e4, we go b5, they go a4, we go bishop b4, we have to defend the pawn. Let's say bishop e2, knight f6, castles. And now this pawn is hanging. This is another pattern we must know. So instead of castling, queen c2 is definitely a possibility. But as soon as they unpin the knight, snap the knight off, take on e4, and I've won many games like this. The engine is going to say equal, but I mean, I'm 2 pawns up. It's not really equal. The one exception is the move bishop g5, and bishop g5 is a very annoying move because our best attempt here is to play bishop e7. If we go knight f6, then of course e4 is coming, and the pawn is attacked, the knight is, well, okay, we have h6, but you know the pattern, white wants to win the knight. So on bishop g5, we have to go bishop e7. And once the bishops are traded, if we now took with the queen, then e4 or e3 would put immense pressure on the pawn, because we'd have to go queen b4. So bishop b4 out of the question. This is the idea behind bishop b5. But we do take with the knight. And now on any e4, we have b5, and that's perfectly fine. And if they try to go b3, we can now go c5 and break the center. This is slightly more complex. I should just say that knight b5 is a blunder because of queen a5. So most people are going to play dc5, and now queen a5, pinning the knight, and so on and so on. We have compensation for giving the pawn back. Most people, though, on knight e7 are going to go a4. That prevents b5, of course, because if b5 once again takes and takes and takes, makes no sense. So we go knight d5, and the idea behind knight d5 is to remove the attacker of the b5 square. So for example, a5, c5, and we break through. Black is slightly better here. Bishop g5 is a mistake. Of course, if instead of a5 white takes, then, I mean, take with the e-pawn. Do not look for a nice pawn chain, liberate the bishop. This is your semi-Slav, French, Queen's Gambit declined bishop, whatever you want to call it. It's buried. If you can play ed, play ed. And of course, black is winning here. So the Noteboom is a very tricky opening for white to face when there's no option to play the Marshall Gambit. And I like it as black. Now, let's look at what happens when white is being smart, when they avoid the Schara, when they avoid the Noteboom. So d4, d5, c4, e6. They start with knight f3, avoiding the Schara, von Hennig in the Tarrasch. We go c6. Now, of course, e4, the gambit doesn't work now, as I mentioned. So if white plays knight c3, we take the pawn, but white has other options. e3, queen c2, g3, and bishop g5. Against g3, e3, and queen c2, we play the Stonewall. And the difference between g3 and e3 is where the bishop is going to be placed. You will know that in the Stonewall, against the Stonewall, white has many setups. One of the best, in my opinion, is to play g3 with knight h3. And the idea behind g3 and knight h3 is to play bishop f4 and trade off black's best attacking piece. Usually this bishop sits on d6, the knight will go to e4, and black wants to checkmate white. So with the knight being on f3, we have eliminated at least one option, which is a good thing. So if they go g3, we are going to go f5, Stonewall, and there is no option to go bishop f4, at least not easily. If they go e3, we do the same thing. We go f5, they go bishop d3, let's say, knight f6, castles, bishop d6, and I don't know, let's say b3. There are many moves. There is a ton of theory in the Stonewall. Please look at my video on the Stonewall. I made a separate video completely on that, knight e4, and you know, the normal Stonewall ideas. We want to checkmate. Now the only exception, and this works against queen c2 as well, queen c2, f5, same thing. The only exception is the move bishop g5. And against this, we are going to play a normal Queen's Gambit declined position, and unfortunately there is no alternative to accepting that. This exact move order, d4, c4, knight f3, bishop g5 for white, is the only exception to the three setups I'm showing you. Against this, unfortunately, we have to go bishop e7. And after bishop e, queen e, something like e3, knight f6, knight c3 castles. We now have to go for the standard Semislav or Karpov Karo-Khan, or whatever you want to call it, bishop liberation with b6, c5, bishop b7, or of course knight d7, rook e8, e5. One of these two plans, e5 or c5, liberate the bishop and play a normal Semislav / Karo-Khan. This is the only exception to our three setups. So that's the repertoire. Once again, against knight c3, Schara Gambit. Against knight f3, Noteboom, knight f3 with knight c3 on move 4. And against knight f3 with e3, queen c2, or g3, we play the Stonewall Dutch. This repertoire is unlike any other, as far as I know. It's very uncommon, it's very complicated, it's extremely aggressive. Each one of these openings is probably the sharpest option you can go for. So if you want to beat the Queen's Gambit on your own territory, I recommend this repertoire. Once again, check it out on Noctie, practice against Noctie instead of learning theoretical lines. And if you want separate videos, you can find them on the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye-bye.